here we have the, what number tool is this? The 9206?
Stand. It is a flywheel lock, P9206.
Alright, so this is a Porsche 9206 flywheel lock. Okay, and when you use one, it comes with 3 big flat washers and a nifty 19mm bolt, handily colored blue. And then we have our original hardware when we removed the flywheel, which before I replace the flywheel, I'll Dremel these and make sure that they're all cleaned up, and because we're going to torque them to 200, right? So we're going to want to get these cleaned up. But what's going to happen is we're going to put the flywheel in place. Now, while we cut the video for a second, Rob jumped up top and made sure that the flywheel's still at top dead center, and that we're going to do that one last time, which is after the flywheel lock is installed. We're going to verify that we're again at top dead center. Alright, so the flywheel is going to go in like this. It has an angle cut that fits the contour of where the starter motor was, so the lock's going to be placed in here. And this shorter of the two bolts is going to go through. Okay, and I'm going to put one of these washers in to hold it in place. And then we're going to kind of cantilever the lock up in there. I was just going to start this with just a finger turn or two, just to get the bolt threaded. This is going to kind of, like I said, it's going to kind of cantilever up into the flywheel. And then the longer starter bolt that came from the front, we're going to put a washer on each side of it, and we're going to send it through its mounting bolt like that, and fasten, put another washer, and then our lovely blue nut. There. Just get it started. Okay. Now, get around here. You know what I think?
What's that, boss? You feel the need for speed?
Alright, so now I have no intention, fellas, of torquing these things to 200 pounds.
Not a chance.
I am just going to give them one little quickie pull so as to make sure, make sure that the flywheel lock is indeed engaged. So I'm just going to give this a couple of quick turns just to snug it. I'm not really trying to get it overly tight, just maybe a half turn past hand tight. Alright, so now the flywheel lock is pretty securely in place. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and verify for the final time top dead center. And as long as we stayed at top dead center, then I'm going to feel pretty good about moving on to the next step. Alright, so I'm looking down, and I'd say I'm still lined up. So at this point, we can go ahead and make sure that that flywheel lock is indeed in place by trying to the motor, which will not turn, so that's a good thing. And we're on to our next step. And we're back. So the next steps in this process, I've kind of bypassed a little bit because of other maintenance work I was doing on the car. So I already have my airflow housing, my air box and the AFM removed from the car. So of course this is the AFM harness, which if you followed my recent threads, I replaced all the connectors. So this has a fresh connector on the end of it, fresh termination, and then of course you've got a couple of vacuum hoses that connect to the bottom of the AFM, which are up and out of the way at this point. So we've got 1, 2 that go to the J boot, right? We've got the bottom of the AFM over here. Everything, all the hardware is back on the car where the AFM will mount back up, and so that's cleared. And the only last step prior to removing the timing belts is the distributor. So what I did, and what I'm going to do anyway, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to mark my spark plug wires. Not that that's a difficult item, but it is something that I'd like to do because I'm just going to keep them bundled and out of the way. Also, when you're putting this back, when you're putting the plug wires on, I find it super helpful to use the same hook. Okay, because if you just try and push the wire on, because it has such good suction, you can see it pulling itself away, and it doesn't get a good bond. So by breaking that vacuum with the hook, just be careful not to damage the boot. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and pull these out of the clip real careful so as to not break them. I know that you guys out there, some of my fellow maniacs, are smiting me right now because I don't have Porsche wires. These are just Excel wires, but they are matched resistance. So even though I'm a big fan of keeping it pretty close to stock, I do retro restores, and I'm going for performance, and an 8.8 millimeter wire with that's resistance matched. You still get that perfect firing. Now to remove the distributor cap is pretty easy. It's got 2 spring-loaded screws. Porsche wants you to take a screwdriver and bend it. I just use a stubby, and you kind of push them in to break the spring, and give it a half a turn, and you'll feel it pop out. And that's it. So one of the things I did before pulling the distributor cap, and I wanted to go back, Rob asked me to go back and add this into the video, is I take a Sharpie, and I think you can see, I marked the plug wire locations on its respective contact on the distributor cap. So our firing order, of course, is 1, 3, 4, 2, and I just mark it up underneath where the boot's going to sit, so you don't have to worry about seeing it or anything. I've changed wires, and relatively familiar with the concept of firing order, so this may seem elementary to some of you guys who do this regularly or have been in and out of cars, but for those of you who haven't, I find it pretty helpful, and you can just use a Sharpie, and then when you're done, it will literally rub off with your finger. Just rub the 4 off. And put it back on there for future reference, so when we put the video back of putting it back in. But again, you will find it helpful if this isn't something that you do.